Manchester United or Newcastle United? Eddie Howe sends a warning to Alexander Isak as the striker seeks a move away. We've got the latest coming up. Good morning to you at home and those watching on YouTube. Welcome to European football expert Kevin Hatchard and to Dan Kahn too. We're going to start with Newcastle United. What a few days it's been for them. We are going to go to the club's training ground shortly to speak to our reporter there. It's to Newcastle United's training ground and speak to our reporter Pete Graves. Right, Pete, Alexander Isak, I'm going to start with him before Sesko. He returned to the country this weekend after that rejected bid from Liverpool on Friday. Is there any sign of him there today?
Not yet, Tom. No, I'm watching. I'm here. I'm watching. No cars have come down the lane yet. This is the club's training ground. Before I talk about the football, little weather report. Storm Floris. Winds of up to 85 miles an hour predicted today. Rain. Hope it's lovely in the studio for you three there. Hope you're having a great day. It's chilly here, but the weather in some ways reflects Newcastle United's transfer window, doesn't it? It's been a very stormy time here up on Tyneside. As you say, Isak is back in the UK. We believe he's here in the northeast. We still don't know whether he's going to come here to the training ground today, but we're keeping a close eye on it. The rest of the squad, without Alexander Isak, have all been on a flight overnight. They played in South Korea in Seoul yesterday, drew 1-1 with Tottenham Hotspur. Their flight back with Eddie Howe and all the rest of the squad has landed in the last sort of 20 minutes or so, so they're also back in the northeast now. Whether Eddie Howe comes here and then meets with Alexander Isak today is yet to be seen, or whether that may happen tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see. I believe there was a short delay on the flight back from South Korea, so you've presumably got a lot of tired players and a tired manager there arriving here back on Tyneside today. But clearly the situation needs resolving as soon as possible, with the season getting closer all the time. And there were some quotes from Eddie Howe yesterday. He told the Daily Mail, and this is as strong as I've heard Eddie in a long time, talking about Alexander Isak. He said, "You have to earn the right to train with us. We are Newcastle United. The player has a responsibility here to be part of a team and part of a squad. You have to act in the right way, so that is also at play here. No player can expect to act poorly and then train with the group as normal." So clearly a warning shot from Eddie Howe towards Alexander Isak. He's not gone on this pre-season tour in Asia. He's not played any pre-season at all. The official line is he's got a thigh problem, but as we've reported, we understand that he wants to explore his options away from Newcastle United, and we know Liverpool are there. They've made a formal bid, 110 million plus add-ons, and our understanding is that Alexander Isak is looking at that offer, of course. Well, not the offer, because that hasn't been accepted. Newcastle United want 150 million pounds. That's the asking price, clearly some way away from that Liverpool offer. But can they resolve things, or will he be sold? The club have got a big decision to make on what they do with Alexander Isak.
Yeah, you're in the right place, I suppose. So when he is there, we'll find out whether he's training with the team or not to start with. But what about replacing him if he goes, of course, because he hasn't gone yet? A bid has gone in for Benjamin Sesko. Where do we stand with that?
Well, yeah, Newcastle United looking for a player. Well, they need a striker anyway. There was an argument that they needed two strikers before this window started, when they thought they were going to have Isak in the squad next season. Callum Wilson has gone, of course, on a free. He's signed for West Ham. They have William Asula, who can play up front, but he's still very young, still very raw. So there was some suggestion before this window even started that they'd be looking for two strikers. Now with this situation with Isak, clearly there's a huge necessity to bring in more options in the forward line. Benjamin Sesko is seen as a player that can not only lead the line for Newcastle United here, but a player who is good enough, if Isak were to be sold, to fill his boots at St James's Park. So Sesko is the one that they're looking at. We know that a formal offer went in on Saturday. We think that's close actually to what they're looking for as well, RB Leipzig. I think that the offer was close to the asking price, but they're now just looking at the structure of payments and not very far away from being accepted, is my understanding of that situation. And Eddie Howe will be hopeful that Sesko can come here to the club and be a key player for them next season. There is, of course, this worry that Manchester United are also looking at Benjamin Sesko, although at this moment in time, the only offer on the table for RB Leipzig is the offer from Newcastle United. And Sesko, we understand, is intrigued by the project here at Newcastle United as well. And clearly, Sesko is the sort of profile of player who could come in, and certainly Newcastle United supporters would be excited by a signing of his stature. So it would certainly soften the blow if the club decided to cash in, sell Alexander Isak. We know if they do that, it's going to be a Premier League record transfer because they've already knocked back 110 plus add-ons. So if Liverpool are going to come back in, they're going to have to come in higher than that. So it's likely to be a Premier League record as far as the transfer fee is concerned if they decide to sell Alexander Isak. Of course, the coming days, today, tomorrow, and what that sort of relationship is like between Isak and Eddie Howe when they're all back together here behind me is going to be key. Interestingly, Eddie Howe, when speaking about Isak, we know he's been training in Spain, Real Sociedad, his old club. I don't think there was so much a surprise from the club that happened because a lot of Isak's team are still based in that part of the world. However, Eddie Howe revealing that he actually found out about that through the media, which tells a lot, doesn't it, about how much the player and Eddie have been speaking. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation, but if Sesko can be secured from RB Leipzig, like I said before, I understand they're not too far away now in terms of the fee. It's just the structure of payments. If that can be agreed and they can bring Sesko here, then that would certainly appease the supporters, I think, and to some extent, Eddie Howe.
Yeah, deadline day is 4 weeks today. I've got a feeling that you and Eddie Howe will be very busy in that time. Pete, thank you. Right, okay, so we've got Kevin and Dan with us. We talked about why the demand is so big for Sesko, but of course, we are now comparing Sesko to Isak because it might be one out, one in at Newcastle. How different are they as strikers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, physically, they're significantly different. Isak is a lot more polished in what he does, but of course, that's been a process. There is still a rawness about Sesko. But you look at his journey, he was at Salzburg and he took a while to get going there, but once he did, he started to score goals. And I do think he's dynamic enough, I do think he's physical enough to deal with the Premier League. And what I like about him is that he's not scared to try things. There was a goal towards the back end of last season that I commentated on against Bayern, where the goalkeeper, Jonas Urbik, was a long way off his line. A lot of players would just lift that ball over the top of the goalkeeper. He went, no, I'll just hit it with the outside of my boot.
Yeah, we've
just backed myself.
Showed that goal a lot, and rightly so, because it is.
It's an unbelievable goal.
It does stand out.
And he strikes the ball beautifully. Decision making sometimes needs a bit of work, but he's 22. So I think clubs are looking at him and thinking he's got a high ceiling.
But then, Kevin, I wanted to ask you how, maybe right now, as you mentioned, comparing him to Isak is very different compared to when Isak first joined from Real Sociedad. So when Isak joined Newcastle initially, he felt a little raw in terms of his finishing. So where would you compare Šeško's development to maybe where Isak started when he first came to Newcastle?
Yeah, I think that's fair actually, because the leap that Isak has made was not guaranteed, and there've been a lot of Premier League clubs that had looked at him and nobody pulled the trigger until Newcastle made that move. And that was always the question, could he translate what he'd done in La Liga to the Premier League? And he's been able to do that. It was interesting, there were a lot of comparisons between Sesko and Gyökeres with Arsenal, because Arsenal have been very interested in him for quite some time and then pivoted to Gyökeres. Gyökeres is probably a win now guy. I think in 2-3 years' time, Sesko, I think, has that higher potential, but I think he can score goals in the short to medium term as well.
They all look very happy as well. Now, here's to a few transfers that we do know about. Newcastle United and Manchester United are in talks with RB Leipzig over the signing of striker Benjamin Sesko. Al Nassr have failed an attempt to sign Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes. What else we got? We've got Chelsea. They've completed the signing of teenage defender Joel Hatto from Ajax. Mark Gu's flight to the northeast was postponed on Sunday, but that does not mean, we're told, that the loan deal from Chelsea to Sunderland is dead. He's expected to join and have his medical soon. Birmingham City, they're expected to sign Ajax striker Chuba Akpom despite a last-ditch attempt from Middlesbrough to hijack the deal. The under-21-year-old is in England to undergo a medical. That's not him, by the way. I think you know that already. He'll go on a season-long loan deal to Birmingham. But now to this one, Rangers have agreed a £3 million deal to sign go-ahead Eagles winger Oliver Antman. And Steven Alzate will have a medical with MLS side Atlanta today, ahead of signing a 5.5-year deal